Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Spectrum Talk with Ruby. Today, we celebrate a woman whose leadership has shaped our city for more than 3 decades, Mrs. LaTonya Lacy. After 34 years of public service, LaTonya is retiring from her role in city leadership, and she's leaving a legacy of vision, dedication, and deep community impact. She's known for her quiet strength, her strategic insight, and her commitment to equity. LaTonya excelled in administrator roles, building bridges, breaking barriers, and getting things done. Her work has touched countless lives, and today we honor that legacy. We'll reflect on her journey, her influence, and her retirement plans as she steps boldly into the next chapter of her life. I'm excited to share her inspirational message to listeners, so stay tuned and enjoy my conversation with one of Denver's most impactful figures.
I started in the city as executive assistant under the web administration, and I've literally just kind of worked my way up, whether it was special projects coordinator and administrators and managers and directors and, executive director, and most recently, deputy chief of staff. So I've just worn a number of hats over the course of my tenure.
And are you originally from Denver?
I am not. I was actually born in Shreveport, Louisiana. But I've been here since age 4, so I consider Denver home for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you get back down to Shreveport ever?
It's been a long time. We're overdue.
Yeah.
My mom was saying, Tanya, you're going to retire. Let's take a trip. Let's go this fall. Let's go this summer. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have some time on my hands, so we'll get there hopefully this year.
That's good. It's beautiful, but it's hot.
It's so hot. It's so hot everywhere right now.
Well, you've held a lot of roles, and that's really impressive. It's great that you worked your way up from being in an executive assistant role and kind of learning the ropes. So after you served in those 5 mayoral administrations and under those 5 Denver mayors, what allowed you to maintain longevity in those roles and in your work? And how did you gain the trust of people that you were working with, including the Denver mayors across those different leadership styles that they had?
I'll tell you, my faith in God is first and foremost. And so I am a person that believes that everything happens for a reason. And we are in life exactly where we are supposed to be. And so that combined with my belief in my core principles of literally just integrity and accountability, humility, respect, and really my reputation has kind of been at the center of it all. So regardless of who was in office or what their leadership style was, it never mattered to me, as I consistently just always stayed focused on doing the work. Leading with excellence and being open and flexible was something that was also very important, and being consistent. And so focusing in those kind of core principle areas really kind of kept me grounded. And I really believe that whenever people trust your character, not just your skills, it's that trust that's lasting. And those are some of the things that I think have really helped me build the lasting relationships with not only the mayors, but the administrations and the staff over the course of all these years.
I love what you said about being in the place that you're supposed to be at the time that you're there and everything happening for a reason. I love that. And I think about over those 5 mayoral administrations, there was a lot of change that happened in Denver. And so it's great to hear that your core values at the end of the day really allowed you to stay strong through the city's transitions. That's great.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think you're most proud of during your time as a city employee?
That's a good question. Oh, Ruby, there's so many things. There's so many things that I'm proud of. Just to name a few, I will say being a steady and trusted presence in leading transition successfully across 5 administrations. Webb, Hickenlooper, Vidal, Hancock, and Johnson administrations is something I'm very proud of. My relationships that I've established, I'll say, over the years with not only community, but numerous city employees across the departments and the administrations is something that I treasure. And many of those relationships are lasting relationships that'll live even beyond my career here in the city and county of Denver. And so that's something I'm very proud of.
Receiving my first mayoral appointment by Mayor Hancock as Deputy Chief of Staff was definitely a very proud accomplishment in my career.
And being in the center, I will just say, being in the center of so many of the historical events, to name a few, the Pope's visit, the Summit of the Eight, the parades and the rallies. I mean, Denver is such a sports town, right? And so whenever we had our Broncos, our Nuggets, and even the 2 Avalanche championships, like our city was on fire. And knowing that all the planning and efforts that came out of the mayor's office for those rallies and such was so super exciting. And then, of course, I'm going to say my favorite and most unforgettable moments would have been totally the 2008 DNC, because that resulted in nomination of Barack Obama as our first Black president. And so that's something I was very proud to be in the center of as well, with all of those planning efforts. And then lastly, I'm going to say, on a personal and a professional note, my participation in last year's Dancing with the Denver Stars Gala on behalf of Mayor Johnston was so exciting for me. I not only had the opportunity to raise funds for the amazing Cleo Parker Robinson organization, but I was trained by one of her professional dancers, and I performed this dance routine in front of nearly 1,000 community members. And so that was absolutely a highlight in my career that I will treasure forever. So, I mean, I could go on and on, but those are just some of the highlights of areas where I feel most proud.
Okay, so I have to know, what song did you dance to?
I danced to Outstanding by the Gap Band.
Oh, nice. Okay. And what kind of dance did you do?
I mean, it was a mixed genre. We had a little old school, we had a little swing in there, little salsa in there. It was kind of a combination, but it was so much fun. It was just a lot of fun. And Lamar Rogers was my dancer, and he was very patient with me, and he taught me well.
That's so cool. Well, you have a lot to be proud of, certainly. And some of the events that you've named are extremely important in the city's history. You touched on the DNC in 2008 and the election of Barack Obama. And that makes me wonder, you were serving under the Wellington Webb administration, and that was Denver's first Black mayor. He served 3 terms. But then he also worked under mayors of different racial backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds. So how did you adapt to those changes, both in city leadership and the political climates over the years?
It's a good question. And I mean, again, I'm just going to say, really, just staying true to my values, faith, integrity, and just a real commitment to kind of public service, if you will. From my perspective, change is part of the work in government, period, point blank. And so I learned really early on to embrace it and not resist it. I saw each administration really as a fresh opportunity to learn, to support, and to lead in new ways, and also, to build new relationships. And so in those scenarios, I just made it a point to stay flexible, to stay open-minded, and stay focused on finding solutions no matter what the circumstances were. And the circumstances most certainly vary per administration. I often had to shift the gears quickly, and adjust to the different communication styles, the priorities, the goals, and different ways of doing things. But I always focused on building trust and listening and serving as that steady in the midst of all those transitions and in each of those administrations. And so through it all, I'm going to say just being consistent in who I was, it really, really allowed me to support the different leaders effectively while keeping the city moving forward and also delivering for the people of Denver.
You make it sound very easy. But I was sure that it wasn't that easy. Yeah. Well, what do you think was the most challenging period or the most challenging situation that you encountered during your tenure?
I mean, and let me just say, and I don't mean to make it sound easy. I don't want to minimize it by any chance, because in the position, what I will also say, and then I'm going to get to that very specific question, is I always believed in doing things the right way, right? Even whenever it wasn't popular, Ruby, I wasn't never afraid to ask the tough questions. And I always had this belief that, just because you can do something doesn't mean that we should. And so I took pride in being the person leading behind the scenes and showing up each day with a servant's heart and doing the work. And it wasn't always easy. Collaboration was always really, really key. So I want to be real clear that it's not always easy. I want to be clear. It's definitely not easy, but I think whenever you are focused, it helps tremendously, and you have a plan and you kind of are grounded in the things that you need to be. And I think whenever you're really consistent, all of those things are incredibly helpful. So when you talk about the most challenging time in my career, I'm going to have to say the most challenging, but also a really proud time in my career was undoubtedly the COVID-19, the global pandemic, right? And I say that because I never forget, it was like March 2020, and it's like it disrupted every single aspect of city operations. We were put into crisis mode like overnight. We had to activate our emergency operations center. We had to respond to the urgent needs of the constituents and make sure there's access to essential services and there's clear communication, and had to support our most vulnerable. It was just so many things that were happening out of the mayor's office behind the scenes. But what made it even more difficult was having to carry that work out on behalf of the city, but also navigating your own personal life. So you're doing this work on behalf of the city that you love, but then you're having to manage your own fears. You're having to literally care for your own loved ones, and you're trying to maintain a sense of balance, like during a time whenever nothing felt certain. And so, I mean, we were leading through crisis, but like I say, we were also very human. And so having that resilience, that adaptability, and this really a whole lot of deep compassion was so critical during that time. And so for me, as challenging as it was, I just really leaned on my faith, my experience, and I mean, just such an incredible, amazing, dedicated team that showed up every single day, despite the weight that we were all carrying personally and professionally. And so that season reminded me of the power, if you will, of steady leadership and collective strength. Like, we're better together always. And it kind of just reinforced the heart of public service for me, which is to show up and serve with purpose and lead with care, and even in the face of the unknown. And so, like I said, that would have to be the most challenging time, but it's also one of the most proud times, because as challenging as it was, we made it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Indeed. Mm-hmm.
I feel like the city of Denver did a remarkable job of keeping it together. I mean, there were so many emergency services, and people were just really looking to that city leadership for hope.
Exactly.
Y'all did a great job.
Thank you for that, Ruby. It was a lot.
Absolutely.
And we were so fortunate. We had Bob McDonald, who was the executive director of Denver Public Health Office. And I mean, he was sort of like our Denver Fauci, you know? And so we were blessed to have such an extraordinary, experienced leader. And of course, with Mayor Hancock as well, leading us through that time, indeed.
Well, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic and everything shutting down and all the economic impacts of that, there were a lot of social issues going on at that time too, with the protests following the death of George Floyd and just all of these issues erupting across the country. So when it comes to the city's approach to equity during that time and inclusion, what did you see from your perspective in terms of an evolution of citywide values and the incorporation of DEI initiatives and standards? How did all that look from your view during that time?
Right. That's a great question. Boy, I have so much that I could say on that. I'll try to be succinct. We were certainly in a position in where we had to really look in the mirror and face the reality of what maybe was always there, but it was in our face more directly, if you will. And so what I will say, and then I'm referencing like when it comes down to George Floyd and some of the other things that were happening social-wise in the city. But what I'm going to say is that over my career, being kind of at the center of the city's approach when it comes down to equity and inclusion and DEI and all the things, I am proud that each of the mayors that I've had the honor of working for, they have really prioritized equity and inclusion. And so I'm going to go back a little bit, and I'm going to just say I first observed the meaningful efforts during like Mayor Webb's administration. He came in, as the first Black mayor of our city, and he laid the groundwork by creating opportunities for communities of color and ensuring community voices were not only heard, but they were included. Then Mayor Hickenlooper absolutely built on that as well, and he continued equity efforts in a strong fashion by addressing a lot of the structural disparities through education funding and homelessness initiatives, including Denver's Road Home. I mean, there was so much work that was done under his administration as well. And Mayor Vidal, he kept that momentum and maintained progress through the transition to the next administration. And then when Mayor Hancock came in, he really marked a transformative shift. He institutionalized equity. So he came into the office with the goal of delivering a world-class city where everyone matters. He created Denver's first Office of Social Equity and Innovation, appointed the first chief equity officer that the city of Denver has ever had. He even embedded equity into the budgeting process for the whole city, expanded access to the MWBE contracts, launched the loan fund for Black and Brown business owners, and implemented reparation efforts. And so he was making equity not just a value, but a measurable part of how the city operates.
Yeah.
And so there was so much that was happening during his administration that we had to really work through. But in the midst of what was happening socially, all these other things were happening. And so there was quite a lot. Again, I always say that's when I saw the transformative shift in the institutionalization of the equity. And then, of course, when our current Mayor Johnston came in, he maintained the Office of Social Equity and Inclusivity. We call it OSCI. And he didn't have to do that. Let's just be clear. That office was built under the previous administration, but he did. He saw the importance of maintaining that office. And he also put equity into operational practice. He's tying it directly to policy goals. He's really maintained a strong position on immigration policies that affect the city. And most recently, as everyone knows, he testified in front of Congress on immigration and sanctuary policies. So when I say I am so proud to have served under the past 5 mayors that have really prioritized equity, I mean that wholeheartedly, because each mayor has certainly contributed in that way. And so amidst everything that has happened socially, we've had these kind of efforts that have just been moving forward, and they've kept Denver moving forward with intention and heart. And so I always say kudos to each and every one, and whenever it comes down to that. So have I seen evolution of equity? Absolutely. Am I proud of it? 100%. Do I think that we have more work to do? No question. We absolutely do. But I am proud of the work that has been done and the work that is being done.
Yeah. Well, I echo that and I agree with you. And, one of the things during that time that I noticed between the pandemic and what was happening politically is that there was really an increase in the attention being paid by communities of color toward how to get involved from a civic perspective. So how to run for office, how to really communicate with our local lawmakers. So as a Black woman in leadership during that time and through all of these years, what do you wish that we as the community understood about public administration and city governance? And what advice do you have for people of color who do wish to pursue leadership roles in city or local government?
Great questions. Let me start with, when it comes down to city governance and public administration, what I'm going to say is one of the most important lessons that I've learned is that while what we do in city government is crucial, how we do it is even more important. The way we lead, how we hold one another accountable, how we listen, how we collaborate, how we show respect and compassion. All of those type of things really shape not just the outcomes, but the culture of public service itself. I wish more people understood that the work isn't just operational, it's relational. Progress does not just happen in a vacuum, contrary to popular belief. It depends on the how. It goes back to the how. It depends on how well we engage our communities, how we value and respect diverse voices, how we show up for one another across the city, across the departments, and across the administrations. I've also learned and would just say that accountability, trust, transparency, and collaboration, they are not just buzzwords. They are necessities. And, in public service, it's not about ego or spotlight. It's about stewardship. And so good governance is about knowing how to listen, how to dare and deliver with integrity, even whenever no one is watching. And to me, that's kind of what sustains lasting impact. So that's kind of the behind the scenes public administration, my perspective. But I would just say, shifting it to being a Black woman in leadership, yes, absolutely, there's barriers that exist. And so there's always going to be barriers that exist. And the type of barriers, I think they vary for everyone. And that said, I don't think this challenge is specific to Black women as much as women and people of color in general. And so in those moments, I always encourage myself and others to maintain a very professional and positive perspective and never take anything personal, because the truth is, while it can feel very personal, in most cases it isn't. And so with that understanding, along with allowing my work ethic and professionalism to kind of speak for itself, that has been really helpful in maintaining my peace and staying focused on really what matters the most. And so that, and then of course, like many things in life, having a strong faith and support system to lean on is incredibly helpful. I've been blessed to have a wonderful husband, family, and friends to serve as my biggest supports and to kind of keep me grounded. So in the midst of all the things that are happening, I mean, you ask a great question as far as kind of from the perspective of a woman and a Black woman.
Well, I love that. I love it so much that I wish that you didn't just retire, but you announced your retirement. What inspired your decision to step away now, and how are you feeling as you prepare to close this chapter?
I mean, I'm going to say that I'm a planner. I am a planner. And so after 34 years of public service in the mayor's office, like I've always known that I would retire this year. And so I wanted to close this chapter with intention and on my own terms. So, I mean, I feel like I've had the honor of serving under 5 amazing mayors and contributing to work that truly, truly mattered.
I feel God is leading me into a new season of more, where I can not only rest, but deepen my faith and spend more time with my amazing husband, LaTonya Lacy, and my beautiful mother who has prayed me through all these years. I mean, literally my entire family and my 6 beautiful grandchildren.
And pour more energy into my business. I have Lacy's Chair Cover Rentals, and it's been kind of a long passion project, if you will, and a creative outlet. And so for me, closing this chapter is not an ending. I'm going to still be around. I'm still going to be supportive in the community and such. But it is really more of a turning of the page to really embrace more of what matters and to use my gifts however God sees fit. That's my inspiration, Ruby.
That's wonderful. I love that for you. As you speak, I'm looking at Lacy'sChairCoverRentals.com and everything's beautiful. So I think,
thank you for that.
Of course. Yeah. I think that'll be so nice.
We do it all. It creates a great opportunity to not only accommodate whatever the event may be, and it's a gamut. It could be business, it could be wedding, birthdays, retirement, baby showers. It doesn't matter the event. We're able to accommodate linen. We have a team that can set up if needed as well. We have a multitude of colors of chair covers, and we have all spandex chair covers. And we're always happy to partner on creative outlook and make sure that we are transforming events from ordinary to extraordinary, if you will. So it's something that we started about 11 years ago as kind of a passion project. And now I think I'm going to really, really look forward to enjoying it even more.
That's so great. It sounds like you love it. So congratulations. Of course, and congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much, Ruby. I appreciate that. You asked a question about women pursuing leadership in government. I get asked that question a lot because I know that it's not always easy. If there was any advice, I would just say as a woman of color, is just to show up early, to be prepared, and to know your worth. And I also encourage so many people to just speak your truth with confidence, even whenever it's uncomfortable. And just remember, if you're invited to the table, use your voice. And if the table doesn't reflect, or if it doesn't respect who you are, don't be afraid to build your own. Sometimes real change really comes from creating space, not just fitting in. And so just making sure that your work aligns with your values. It's that kind of alignment that will keep you grounded whenever things get tough. And so I wanted to just put some emphasis on that because over my career, there are a number of women that I've mentored and partnered, and those were some of the advice that I had given them. Certainly confirmed and affirmed with them that yes, it's harder for us sometimes. We do have to lead differently, but nonetheless, these are some of the things that are important to keep in mind, and I think that will be very helpful.
Well, thank you. That is just wonderful advice. I'm going to take that personally as advice to me.
I appreciate that. Yes, and always lean on your system. Lean on the village. We are stronger together, no question. Find your tribe, lift others up, and let people lift you up.